welcome to another episode of the Calexit Congress, sponsored by Yes California, California Independence Campaign. We meet every Sunday. Sometimes the meetings are long, sometimes the meetings are really short. It's just so that we have regular meetings so that everybody has a chance to express themselves and talk about whatever they'd want to, especially you, the public, and to also cover important news from the organization as it develops. We don't exactly have a lot of news to report right at this week. Usually we have important updates. We're still working on the projects that we've already covered. We just don't have any more progress this particular week. But again, Cali Coin is coming. The documentary by Awfully Nice is coming. We already have two excellent interviews with myself already out. Additionally, we will be starting to charge prices for the courses, online certification, and we have the website up. New website, great website with the world's first online certification for secession already available in there. So we have courses up, we have a new website up, we have merch up, and we have a professional documentary up, and we've done some of the most professional interviews ever done in the movement recently with the interview company. The podcast called Different Things Podcast. So a lot of high production things moving, more stuff coming, even bigger things coming, and of course midterms coming. So a lot of that. Let's see here. We got a comment here. Daniel Santora, what can I buy with Cali Coin and how can I get it? So Cali Coin is a non-fungible token. It is a internet piece of art as well as I understand it. Hey Daniel, how's it going? So it's an internet piece of art. It's called the Cali Coin. It'll be a physical non-fungible token. So typically NFTs are virtual graphics that are sold, and this is going to be an actual hard printed metal coin. We're working with the Eternia Empire out of the south to have that printed, and they're still working out some of the mechanics with the printing. But we have the design, they are printing them, and we expect to be able to start selling the Cali Coin soon, which is not currency. It is a physical, non-fungible token. It's coming up. Please ask any questions you guys want. We're here to answer anything. Okay, real quick. Daniel Rice, good? Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's going to be a relatively quick show. Like I said, sometimes we have long shows, sometimes we have short shows. We invited John Drake, the congressional candidate, to come and speak with us today. If he's not here this Sunday, he'll be here next Sunday. We're going to discuss some ideas with Mr. Drake. Mr. Drake has ran for Congress. He's well connected with the California government. Achieved a great deal of fame. He's kind of charming, good graphic designer, and he has already endorsed the conversation on secession. He didn't say he necessarily supported secession, but he said that we have the right to have the conversation, which is the goal here at Yes California. Okay, we'll give it a few more minutes to see more people coming in, but I do want to show you guys all this. Let me show you this real quick. So recently an MSNBC host talked about how the Civil War is already here. Not that it's coming, but it's here. So MSNBC's Tiffany Cross says the U.S. Civil War is here amid the Trump FBI case. So she's on MSNBC, and she said, hey, no, the Civil War is already going on. So, you know, we're already in the middle of a civil war. Let's take a look. Make sure you got the volume up. Give it a second.
That shady website, your
password. You just got fished. Cyber criminals.
Give it a second. Sorry, there's like a long commercial before I'm allowed to play this thing. I'll spare you all. Give it a second here. Interesting commercial. It's got Michael B. Jordan in. Okay, here you go. Here we go. Okay, now I'm going to share screen and show you guys this.
No, let's deal with the rhetoric. At this point, I do think we have to have serious conversations around preparing for actual violence. People keep saying a civil war is coming. I would say a civil war is here. And I don't mean to be hyperbolic. We can look at what has happened just in the past week alone. Since all this has happened, we've had 2 people try to declare war with FBI field offices. I don't think at this point we're going to all pack up our bags and go home and sing Kumbaya. So from a law enforcement angle, what would you recommend the infrastructure of the country do? Because not everybody has the security of Capitol Hill.
Okay, there we go. So that was MSNBC's Tiffany Cross saying that civil war is already here on MSNBC. And I just found that kind of shocking. MSNBC is prone to more excitable statements. And obviously she's covering for Joy Reid, and Joy Reid says some pretty controversial, outlandish stuff, despite her formal education. But I just thought it was an interesting point of the times that now we have on television. They're saying we're already in a civil war. And, you know, nobody criticized her. Some people on the right did, but John Drake.
Hello there.
Hey, what's up? What's up?
Not much. Made it.
Any chance I could get you to turn on your camera?
Dude, I just got off work and I'm not in appearance mode.
Got it. Okay. Well, John Drake's here. So, you know, John, are you up for a conversation?
Sure, I'm down.
Okay, so we were talking about forming a political party. Now, just to frame the conversation, Jason Wright, as CEO, had thought that, yes, California should move into new areas. He's had a different management style than the previous people running the organization, including myself. A lot more aggressive, going after mischief and name calling. And one of the other things he wanted to do was he wanted us to look into forming a political party. Now, the idea was that we would have something where, if, you know, whoever you are as a Californian, as long as you were open to having the discussion around secession or independence, you know, not necessarily that you believed it was the best idea, but that you were a California nationalist. You believe California first, California foremost. And I want more independence from California to some degree. Now, maybe that means, you know, more independent smog car standards from the federal government. Maybe it means a full break, but you were for about California first, California foremost, and more California independence. And we thought if we could get people across California to espouse that idea, we could get people to run for office. And eventually we'd make it where it was more normalized to have people talk like they're a California nationalist. This strategy goes back to the very first thing Yes California did, where we had a member run for assembly. And when that member ran for assembly, he ran as a secessionist. And that was the first time the California government ever wrote, hey, here's somebody running for assembly as a secessionist. And that made news. We got in the LA Times twice, San Francisco Chronicle, etc. So having people run through the proper political channels and talk about something as controversial as California nationalism or California independence does get media attention. And so we were looking at that. Recently, John Drake has started looking into forming a new political party. And the political party that he's in, and John, correct me if I say anything wrong. Just John, I'm just trying to give people an introduction. If I say something wrong, you know, that's not what I meant. So John Drake's looking into forming a new political party. And and it would be called the Socialist Party. Now, I got to tell you, as an ex-Republican, initially I was like a little skeptical of that, but I started to look into it. And a couple things you should know about John Drake. One, John Drake ran for Congress, and I believe he ran for governor. And while he was running in those two different elections, he got media attention. In fact, during the governor race, I think it was 3 weeks before the final election, he was the second-ranked candidate or the first-ranked candidate after in opposition to Larry Elders. So he was able to, in the world's fifth largest economy, at least for a period, rise up to the top candidate in opposition to Larry Elders for governor, which is huge. He's also been contacted and talked directly to the lieutenant governor, Eleni Kounalakis of California, who we know has said, let's defy the Supreme Court, and whose husband, Marcos Kounalakis, outright endorsed secession. So John Drake has been covered by the news. He's made contacts with the California Democratic Party, the California government, and he has a new idea. And John, again, correct me if I'm saying anything wrong. His idea is that, California is a progressive place, but everybody assumes that means that it's a Democratic stronghold. When reality is that while Californians are progressive, and they will always be progressive, even our Republicans, they're not necessarily wedded to the Democratic Party. It's more that the Democrats are kind of the only option in town. You can't vote Republican after Trump and after a history of supporting racism. There really isn't a third party. They kind of got stomped out of existence with the past the post primary law revision made under Governor Schwarzenegger, where Green Party candidates and other candidates can't make it as well anymore. So the Dems in California like to position themselves as, oh, California loves us. Really, it's California's progressive, and they vote Dem consistently because that's the only option in town. If you go to the Old West and there's only one general store, where are you buying your goods? From that general store. Now, the general store owner could go, everybody loves me, and that's why they come here. No, it's because you're the only general store in town. So that's the dynamics of politics here. Jump in, John Drake. John's pointed out a couple things. One, socialism, here, there, but it's not exactly an unpopular concept in California. Now, again, just to give this a little bit of credence, I'm an ex-Republican. So when I hear this, and I was never on board with the Bernie train. I never thought he was going to. But many Californians were. In fact, in the 2020 presidential primary in California, Bernie Sanders beat Joe Biden by 23 percentage points. That was such a clobbering, the media here didn't even bother to report it. In fact, when you look at the presidential primary in 2020, they don't really talk about how Bernie won the primary here against Biden. They'll just mention that it went to Biden. That's it. It just went to Biden. So Bernie beat Biden recently, 23 points here in California. That means there's more mainline Democrats who would back a socialist over a non-socialist Democratic candidate, and that we saw numbers for that in the last 2 years. Think about that, okay? California Democratic stronghold, and the mainline Democrat lost by 23 points to the socialist. Bernie Sanders is an avowed socialist. Nobody who was a Sanders supporter go, oh, I didn't know he was a socialist. Yeah, he was. And he did that well. Now, obviously, that's not everyone in California, but certainly there was a market. And when we look at, Sanders' campaign in 2016, my God, people loved that man here. In fact, we know that the main staffers to build the Bernie Sanders 2016 presidential candidacy came from California. Most of the staff for the Bernie Sanders presidential campaign in 2016 came from California. So there's certainly a love affair with socialism there. John was looking at that. He's been experimenting with that. There seems to be a lot of interest in the youth in this concept. Now, I was a progressive independent, and now progressive CNP never liked either of the two majority parties. Yeah, there's a lot of progressive independents here. They're not necessarily wedded to either party. but they vote Dem because they're not going to vote Republican. So what if there was another progressive party here in California that was not like the Democrats and was even more super progressive? I got to tell you, I've met a lot of people saying I'm left of the left here in California. I'm a little bit right of the left, but I'm also Californian and I have two eyeballs, and I'm out to win it. So this is a very progressive place. Let's go here. Some private chats. Mike, Rich, Dan, and John, glad to see y'all here. That's what Jason Wright says. Here, let me post that up.
I'm also gonna sort of butt in and maybe also say that back in 1934, when California was also a Republican stronghold, when it was a major red state, Upton Sinclair, who was an avowed socialist, running under the Democratic banner, managed to get 875,000 votes, and lost only because you had an even more progressive candidate running against him, who ended up taking 12% of the vote. So even when California was at its reddest in its history, progressives and left-wing candidates have always had a foothold in this state. And when you run under a slogan like "End Poverty in California" or "Fight for the Working Class," those candidates tend to do very, very well. And by mixing in this idea that we don't have to cater to states that hate us, that our party is simply for the Californian and the Californian who is struggling, then I think we are able to effect a lot more change and a lot more support than any of these other parties. A lot of parties get stuck in trying to cater to other states, and when that happens, there's no real loyalty from the party to the people of that state. There is a loyalty to the policies, but those policies don't necessarily represent the people of that state. For example, Nancy Pelosi, who is a California representative, the Speaker of the House, endorsed an anti-choice Democrat in Texas. If you have a party that is able to become strong enough in California, and you have a leader like that endorsing anti-choice politicians in Texas, by having a strong party that stands up and says, no, you can't do that because you're going up against literally the thing that most Californians support, you wouldn't see that necessarily happening. And I think that's something that we have to sort of recognize and not be afraid to let people know. By being able to stand firm in these positions and fight for these positions and be unwavering in these positions, we are able to represent California the way California needs to be represented.
Well, I just got to say right off the bat, John, here we go. We have right after you're talking about socialism. So here's Devil War saying I would choose that party over Republicans and Democrats. Here's Bob Timlin, who's been a longtime Calexit supporter, saying, yeah, I still live with Bernie, bro. And here's Daniel Sapporo saying I would support and I'm an independent who would support a socialist like Denmark. So you kind of got your proof right there. I was just saying that, this is a idea that seems to appeal to Californians, and right off the bat, in about 3 seconds, you had 3 separate Californians coming from their own standpoint saying, yeah, that's true. So again, not everybody in California is a socialist. I'm not necessarily, I'm an ex-Republican, so this is kind of a little uneasy for me, but I think John just proved his point. There's a lot of people in California who are cool with this concept. I would even say up to a third. We literally just saw it while John's talking. People going, yep, 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 yep. And we literally just told you how, we showed you the Upton Sinclair thing where John pointed out that a socialist almost won governor, right?
Yeah, the 28th governorship.
So, and what year was that?
That was in 1934. And the only reason why Upton Sinclair didn't win was because he was up against a third party, progressive, running under the Bull Moose Party, or the Progressive Party, as it was renamed at the time, who was even more avowedly left-wing than Upton Sinclair was, because Upton Sinclair was still having to cater to a Democratic base that was based everywhere else. And so even then, you still had two avowedly left people fighting one another, allowing a Republican to win. It was sort of same thing with Teddy Roosevelt against his former vice president, and allowing the Democrat, trying to remember his name, Woodrow Wilson, winning. And so in California, you had the same thing about 10, 20 years later happening. But it still shows that even when California was a reliably red state, there was still a lot of competition to make it a left-wing state among the people of California.
Yeah, so we're going back to the 30s. California was conservative for most of the time. So what John's pointing out is that when California was conservative, a socialist still almost won. And the reason he didn't was he was going up against Teddy Roosevelt's Bull Moose Party. And this is when Teddy Roosevelt was one of the most famous presidents in America. So
I would also jump in and say that this was also at a time when socialist politics were being talked about. The minute you had left-wing parties sort of stomped out by federal legislation or even state legislators like California banned the ability for even communists to actually take office in the state. You saw like a lot of these more left-wing parties die down. And so it took literal legislation from our representatives to squash out opposition parties. And so by being able to, I guess, reignite that conversation, you're going to see a headwind that you probably haven't seen in literally a century.
So that shocked me. I didn't know that a socialist almost won. And so look at this. 1934, socialist almost wins. 2020, socialist wins the primary. So clearly there's some sort of love affair between California and socialism that's about 100 years. Am I getting this wrong, John?
No, that's 100% accurate. And I'm honestly very pumped to see what the youth engagement when it comes to this new party, because socialism among young people, especially, and in California, is the most favorable when it comes to someone's willingness to vote for someone. Millennials are more likely to vote for a socialist, whether they be man, woman, straight, gay, Muslim, Christian, or atheist. Same thing with Gen Zers and even some Gen Xers, because the same policies that Republicans and Democrats both promote have honestly worsened the lives of the everyday Californian. They're not seeing it when it comes to rent. They're not seeing it when it comes to being able to afford gas or groceries. They're not seeing it in their in the education that they're being promised that will give them the fruits that they were promised so many years ago. It's simply not happening. And so by having a party that is able to meet these concerns, that are able to tackle these issues head on, whether it be affordable housing, education, healthcare, whether it be environmentalism, or even social issues like equity and inclusion, this is the party that will welcome these people with open arms and saying, we will fight for these unwavering.
If I could just chime in real quick, I totally am on the same page and in agreement with all of this. I also just want to expound a little further for some of those folks out there who maybe hear the word socialism and get this like bad taste in their mouth and think of like the Nazis and whatnot. I'd like to point out that Adolf Hitler did not actually believe in socialism, nor did he follow it. He used socialism, which the people would vote for. He saw that this is what the people want, so we'll just call it that, and they'll vote for it. And he was right, but it was fascism pretending to be socialism. And that's how that all won, right? So the Nazis weren't really socialists by any means. They were just fascists. So if you find yourself envisioning Nazis and whatnot when you hear the word socialism, just try and keep that in mind. just try to remember, Hitler was not a socialist. None of those folks were. They realized that the will of the people was leaning towards socialism, because socialism is all about, a governmental structure that benefits society as a whole. Whereas, like right now in America, what we've got is corporate sellouts on the left and the right who just feed war and take the money from the people. And, maybe they don't put it directly into their own pockets. They just, invest it into their own businesses, personal enrichment stuff.
Yeah.
Which actually is much closer along the lines of what Hitler and his folks did than it would be to anything to do with socialism, because socialism does not really make room for the personal enrichment of elected officials. Because again, it's all about taking care of society, the people. So that's my little spiel.
Good. May I have you guys permission to show a few clips just to back up what we're talking about?
Sure, but can I answer the question that Daniel Santoro posted?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So the difference between this party and other socialist parties is that the majority of socialist parties, quote unquote, that are like rooted in California or based in California, are more political organizations that they are parties. So that, for example, like the DSA, it's a political organization that helps socialist identifying candidates get elected. Now, whether or not, and this is also a nationwide organization, also affiliated with a global syndicate of other socialist organizations. The issue with that is that if there is a candidate out there that is more left wing, that is more hardline on a few issues, or may not necessarily fit the mold that they're looking for, they won't support them because they still have an image to uphold. And that's been the issue for a long time when it comes to other socialist parties in California. This party is specifically a socialist party for California. We're not catering to socialists in Tennessee. We're not catering to socialists in Alabama or Mississippi or Texas. We're not concerned with those affairs, or this party will not be concerned with those affairs, because this party's sole interest is socialism for California, not for Texas, not for Missouri, not for New York, not for anywhere else but here, because that's been the issue. When you're so focused on trying to fix every other issue everywhere else, we tend to, our voices here in California get lost in the conversation as, oh, they're about as equal as the issues in Wyoming. Who cares about Wyoming? I care about the people living here. I care about the people who are suffering daily here, whether it be from gun violence, houselessness, whether it be from drug addiction, or the simple inability to afford payments of gas or whatever other energy bills come up. I care about socialism for California. I don't really care about what goes on in New York. I want to help the people in New York, but as a party, we need to finally be focused on helping the people here, and allow California to be the instrument that changes the policies everywhere else. Even even Governor Newsom himself said that change starts in California. California leads the way. If we come up with a party here that represents the interests of the people here in California, in the next 30-40 years, there'll be parties all across the United States that have done the same, because California was instrumental in leading that. And so that's the difference between my party and other parties. We're not a national party. We will be simply a party for California.
That was one of the key things, was that, so obviously socialism and the idea of Calexit are different concepts. But John has been very friendly with us. And John has come on and has said on video, unequivocally, while running for office, which is a huge thing to do and risky, people have a right to have a conversation. People have the right to have the conversation about how free and independent California should be. Period. That is the goal for Yes. Period. In statement. full stop. John has said that he's also willing to support that goal. He's also said that the Socialist Party would also be doing that, where it's going to be California first. So they're not even going to have a national component. And I got to tell you, that's huge, because we are constantly talking about here at Yes California, where national Democrats do things the California Democrats would not be okay with. And national Democrats go to work for the federal government against California interests once they go there.
Yeah. And the goal would eventually be, and I know I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but the goal is that should we end up running, like let's say, national candidates, the whole point of it would be to be the majority minority wing of the Democrats and force their hand to do everything. It's like, oh, you won't pass this thing to benefit California. Good luck getting that $2 billion you need for aid. It'd be more like that sort of thing. It'd be more of that. It'd be sort of like, you either do what we want or we're going to twist your arm until it breaks off. That's essentially what it's going to be. And I'm honestly very stoked for that, because California has been treated horribly by the federal government whether it comes to fire relief aid, whether it comes to aid for healthcare, or any of that other sort of stuff. We are treated like absolute garbage by representatives of other states, because they think that even though we are subsidizing their costs, we are subsidizing their relief efforts, we are putting more into the system than we're taking out, that they can treat us like we're not contributing anything. And I've about had it, because Californians are the ones who are biting the bullet and taking it when we shouldn't be.
That's so you can see how John's already talking the talk. So John said the California Socialist Party would never be part of a national party. So it's not going to create the mistakes that the Republican Party here has, or the Democrats. We are constantly talking about how, Governor Newsom criticized the National Democratic Party for not doing enough on abortion. And then the California Democrats did all sorts of stuff to protect abortion. So if you want to see the difference between the two, it's already on display with Roe v. Wade. John's saying that he won't even make that mistake. There will be no National Socialist Party. They'll just be the California one. That way they can't think about anything other than focusing on California. And they're going to be about California first and foremost. And maybe the party isn't dedicated to the idea of independence or secession, but it's always cool to talk about independence.
May I explain the reasoning behind that decision that's cool to talk about secession?
Yeah, that's why we're here. Yeah.
So the only reason why I think that it's necessary to talk about it, because if we're going to be a California first party, and we're going to be talking about what's in the best interest for Californians, any issue that will affect every single Californian who chooses to call this land their home, those issues need to be discussed whether it's about the nitty gritty of it, the implementation, or the general idea or consensus of an issue. If it's going to affect every Californian, there should be a platform for it to be talked about. Obviously, we as a party, we wouldn't probably take a real issue for or against. Now, we wouldn't take any issue for or against, because whether or not California secedes or remains a part of the union, we plan to remain a party within California. We believe that conversation is vital if it's going to affect every Californian. And so, same thing like healthcare. If it affects every single Californian, then we should be having that conversation. We shouldn't be sweeping it under the rug because it's uncomfortable. We should definitely be promoting it.
I love that. So I view that as compromise. So that the Socialist Party is not saying we're all about independence, but they are saying if you want to talk about independence, that's totally cool. And we're never going to tell anybody you can't talk about independence. And we're never going to criticize in the party candidates who do want to be for secession. And John even said, hey, we will foster the conversation around CA independence. Doesn't mean they're officially pushing for it, but this would be a political party where they're saying it's totally cool to talk about that and to talk that way. And yes, we have members who talk that way. And even if you're not for independence, you are not interested in joining a national party, You are not interested in what's going to happen and how does this benefit America. In this party, the sole exclusive focus is California first. Am I getting that wrong, John?
No, that's 100% correct. It's that you don't have to be for or against secession. You could just simply want to help California in whatever way you see necessary. We're going to accept you as long as the goal is to help California. So, like, for example, I myself am not a secessionist. I don't consider myself a secessionist, but I do, but the thing I consider myself first and foremost is someone who wants to see California succeed and thrive in and live up to the dream and the promises it has given over the years. That's the thing I want to promote and push and encourage everyone who joins this party to also stand by. Secession is an issue within the party that people are going to have to discuss and debate and have conversations about, but that's not a prerequisite to being a socialist in California, obviously.
And so, oh, sorry, Marcus, can I, real quick?
Yeah.
So it sounds to me like for all of our Calexiters, everyone who is already on board with Calexit, everyone who wants to see it happen now, anyone who wanted Calexit now 5 or 6 years ago, if you're looking for a political party to join up to that would represent this issue, at least in part, right? Like fostering the conversation. How many other political parties out there are even willing to let their members openly discuss such a thing, let alone within their little, gatherings, right? Within their meetings. The answer is very few, if any. So if you are looking for a place where we can have this conversation and we can discuss it and really potentially work toward Calexit, then this, from what it sounds like, is probably going to be the party for us.
Yes, but I would say that within secession, within the conversations of secession, obviously there's going to be some sort of guidelines that you can't breach. Like you can't have a conversation about secession if your goal is to create an ethno state. Like that's the whole thing. Like there will be guidelines that people have to follow, because since this is a left-wing party, we have certain values and beliefs that we do hold, and that we're not going to allow that mold to be broken for certain weird fantasies. For example, like I know that in I know that there are some very right-wing groups in California that would love to see a California that's apart from the United States, but have it be like a white nationalist ethno state. That kind of conversation will not be fostered in the party, because that is directly contrary to the mission and goals set up by this party.
It's also against the goals of Yes California. So we're for diversity. I want a place where I can go. So we're not going to be doing any white ethno nothing. Although I've been accused of that. But we won't be doing it. Yeah. A couple of things, if I may show you guys, a share screen to a couple of facts to back up you guys.
Proceed.
Okay, here we go. This is the Upton Sinclair in Poverty campaign in 1934. It's called Epic, and he almost won. So that's all true. That is a socialist who almost won. There he is. Now, this is the 1934. And then we travel back to 2016, Rules for Revolutionaries, How Big Organizing Can Change Everything, 2016, by Becky Bond and Zach Exley. These were the campaign people who ran the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2016 that shocked everybody, where he did very close in winning the presidency, far beyond what anybody thought. Now, if we go and look this up, Becky Bond served as a senior advisor on the Bernie Sanders presidential campaign, and she lives in San Francisco, California. So this is what I was talking about, where the people who ran the Sanders campaign were Californians. Here's the 2020 presidential primary update. How big was Bernie's win and the California primary loss? April 8th, 2020, California Democratic primary. And there it is, Bernie Sanders beating Joseph Biden. I was off on the percentage points. It's about it's close to 10%, which is significant. So I don't know what this video does. Sanders, Biden. So yeah, he beat him pretty handily. That's here in California. That's the primary. You're never going to hear that in 2020. So here we go. 1934, 2016, 2020. See the pattern? Also, Socialist Party of California is dead because they're part of the National Socialist Party. And this is what John was talking about, where, yeah, you had a Socialist Party, but they were a chapter of a larger Socialist Party, which meant they had to answer to them, just like California Democrats have to answer to national Democrats. However, as of 2020, that party was dead. So it's been dead for 2 years. That means it can be reorganized. But John's not going to make the same mistake that this other group did, where they were tied to a national group and then they had to do whatever they said. Socialist Party USA affiliation. There you go. California Democrats embrace a socialist. We've seen this here before by Cal Matters Policy Magazine. That's March 3rd, 2020. Bernie Sanders' robust showing in the California Democratic primary. A decisive chunk of the Democratic electorate is no longer allergic to the word socialism. That is from Cal Matters. That is the top policy magazine in all of California, one of the top ones. And they're saying a huge chunk of people are not allergic to the word socialism. And they said that in the year 2020. Cal Matters, the top policy magazine, also brought up California's infatuation with the 1934 Upton Sinclair thing, just as John did. And wanted to size it. Won 50% of the vote. So here's this policy magazine saying, yeah, in 1930s, socialists almost won. And here in California, Bernie Sanders did so well that there's clearly not as much allergic to the word socialism. Now, I'm allergic to the word, but I'm in on this plan. But a lot of Californians aren't. And that backs up what we see here. And what we see here. So also, if we're going to talk about it, conservatives think California is already a socialist country, right? So here's an article written in 2020 by The Hill. That's Policy Magazine, California's Embrace of Socialism. Here's another one, 2019 by the Daily Caller. That's a conservative magazine, California's Embrace of Socialism. Here's the Orange County Register, not to be undone, California's descent into socialism, 2017. Here's a little bit about John Drake. There he is. Very attractive young man. Look at that. Good graphics. You can go to his website, electdrake.com, and it'll take you here. Endorsed by Warren Democrats of the Central Valley. Love that. Stonewall Democratic Club. Meet John. Talk about the issues. Frequently asked questions. Here's John on Facebook. Same thing. Nice, crisp. Love the graphics. John Drake, the only candidate not to take corporate money, elect Drake. I love the marketing on this. He's got rated F by the NRA. I love that. Just some really good graphics. All these are made by John. So he has a natural talent. And I think, John, your mom was a lobbyist. Am I getting this right?
She was, yes.
So again, you're talking to an ex-Republican. I'm a little bit weirded out by this, but I want to win. And I'm also not blind, and I'm not going to lie to myself. There is definitely a love affair with socialism in California. Now, how big is it? Is it the majority of Californians? I don't think so, but I could be wrong. But I think if somebody says, oh, 5% of Californians like socialism, that's wrong. We're at least looking at 30 to 40%, folks. Maybe it's not a majority.
I would also like to mention that as a party goes through like the whole nomination process to become an official party, the cool thing about it is that when it goes on the ballot, the question will be, do you believe that Party A, Party B, Party C should be an official party within California? And the minute you have Socialist Party of California, not only would that get a bunch of people to be like, oh my God, this party finally exists. Yes, I want to vote for it. But keep in mind, I ran on an openly socialist platform when I ran for not just the assembly, but also when I ran for governor. And cumulatively, I was able to garner around 78,000 votes my first time running. And that, and the reason why that's like so significant is because that's more than half of the amount of votes for people registered in the Green Party in California. So, because I think there's like 90,000 registrants for the Green Party in the state of California, and they're an official party.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was without any real name recognition. That was all me doing my online shtick. But if we're able to get an actual organization running and being able to promote real causes, being able to be there for affordable unit openings and all this and that, that's going to send shockwaves throughout California.
And just to back this up, if I may show this to you real quick. So here's a search result for John Drake when he was running for governor. San Luis Obispo newspaper, Cal Poly student running for governor. Sac B, John Drake running for governor. San Diego Union Tribune, John Drake running for governor. That's not bad. Looks like you got a fair amount of media attention. I'm really impressed by the Sacramento Bee. LA Times, meet the other recall candidates, John Drake. So John did very well. Mustang News, meet the Cal Poly transfer student. YR Spectrum News, that's the Los Angeles news station. They covered John. So you can see how he got a fair amount of media attention running for governor with no previous experience. And I showed you his stuff on Congress. And, when he was running for those positions, he got contacted by the lieutenant governor of California. So this guy's coming out of the gate, just getting started, and he's already crushing it with marketing and saying the right things and getting contacted by top-level Democrats and getting covered at least by 5 different California major newspapers. So I just wanted to show that, John. I know who you are, but I wanted to prove to everybody else, like, you have a track record of success. You have a track record of marketing ideas, grabbing attention. And I think we also proved recently that whether you like it or not, there is certainly a market of socialist supporters here in California. We just literally had 4 of our members go, hell yeah. And then I just showed you all the statistics. And here we go. Cal Matters 2020, a decisive chunk of the Democratic electorate is no longer allergic to the word socialism.
And Daniel, thank you so much for that comment. I absolutely love that. That's so cool.
See, so John, do you have any of those tweets where you were like talking about this and then all of a sudden somebody said, oh, that's great, I love that idea?
Yes. So let me actually, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great, because I just left. So I was sort of on Twitter and I was kind of like poking, like hinting what I was trying to do, where I was like, coming soon, with ellipses question mark, and it was like the logo I had created for the Socialist Party of California, and I was getting comments like, OMG, I can't wait to join. Awesome. Let me know when the drive starts. I'll change my registration then. I also did it on Instagram, and I was getting messages there too. Like, I would like to see that. Um, uh, a cool friend who's been following me since I ran for governor was saying that they can't wait to register to join as well. Um, Good luck to you, and all that sort of stuff. I'll sign up for you. So the whole thing is that there is like a huge there has been this undying and almost sort of like there's been this wait for like a real left-wing party in California for decades now. And when you're able to sort of hint like, oh, this might exist, um, or that this is going to exist, get ready, buckle up, and we're coming at full force. They're ready for it, and they can't wait for it to happen. I mean, like no offense to like some of the Bernie Bros who like started a party like the People's Party, but it was also a very vague term. And even the party is now sort of having infighting in and of itself because they can't figure out what it is they want to accomplish. And so by having a sort of like this centralized body with one goal in mind, I think we're going to be able to do wonders.
Can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Socialism rocks. So that's one of the people. John just put up a graphic, and immediately here's a young person. Socialism rocks. Awesome.
We can't see these pictures that you're clicking.
Okay, let me redo this because I really want to show them if I can. Okay. Can you see something now?
Yes, we can see it now.
Okay. Awesome. Let me know. Blah, blah, blah when the drive starts, and then we'll go from there. See here. Whoops. I swear this is going to be worth it. Once I can figure out what the hell I'm doing. Okay. Give me 1 second.
No problem. An easy way to do it is go to file location, select all the ones that you want to do, right click, and then click open.
Okay, we're going to do this the hard way. So this is one of the graphics that John made. And here's another comment from someone. Socialism rocks. Let me turn off 1 second. Comments, turn that off, turn this on. Okay, here we go. Here's another picture. Oh my God, these are so cool. I will be the first one to buy them when there's a store. And here's another example of a graphic. California is a place that I call home. That a very attractive young man right there. And then you can see the sorry, trying to get everything to work. Okay, there you go. California is a place where millions call home. So you can see the graphics. So John's already got some really high quality stuff already out there. It looks pretty damn good. He's already got a natural talent for it. So there you go. That's what some of the graphics look like. And that is some of the proof from people who already said they were interested. So John just showed you 3 little clips of where he's just gently showing ideas related to this concept. And a lot of people, at least under 45, are immediately going, hell yes. And then what did we see here? So other people also love that vision. So I mean, it's not a hardcore survey, but if you add the fact that John made some brief comments and got support immediately, and if you add that we just talked about this concept and we had 3 or 4 members immediately support it, I think that's a good sign. No, that's not a full marketing survey, but that's 2 different point random surveys. So John's getting immediate reaction from people under 40, and we had an immediate reaction here on our show. Now, I didn't prep anybody or tell them we were going to do this. So again, is everybody socialist in California? No. But is there at least a market for socialism? Yes. Am I missing anything, John?
No, not at all.
Now, I do want to talk about some of the caveats. Now, initially, when we were looking at a political party, we were talking about having Green Party members and conservatives and Republicans and Democrats. And as long as you were California first, you could be in that party. And I still think that's a good idea. At the same time, there's a thing called resources, bandwidth, energy level, and the amount of money in your bank account. And simply put, John's doing this. John has a lot of contacts, a lot of energy, and a lot of people. If Yes California works with him to launch this, we can do a lot of damage because we would be sharing resources and platforms. John has also showed himself to be very friendly to our movement, especially when it was politically costly to do so. He still did so. So to me, that means a lot. That means he put his mouth where the money is. It's not the same as what we were originally looking at. However, I'm not precluding that we might not make a party that has a place for Republicans and stuff in the future. But at this point, there's clearly, I think, a third of Californians who are open to socialism. There's clearly a lack of love for the American Democratic Party in California. We literally had our governor criticize the American Democratic Party recently. That's never happened before. And people can't vote Republican. And although others have tried for years, nobody has succeeded at having a political party of any repute in California that says, you know what, we're against the idea of secession, but damn it, you have the right to have a conversation about independence anytime you want. And frankly, all of us should be having a conversation about independence. And if anybody wants to run as a full-blown secessionist, great, no one's going to criticize you. We have nothing like that at all today, anywhere in the California political landscape. I know people are trying, but they've gotten nowhere. So what if we had John build the Socialist Party? And what if it's not everything that we wanted, but it makes the conversation about talking about independence mainstream and acceptable? And it gets a third of Californians to go, oh, there's a political party where there are secessionists in it. I'm wondering if we won't have the same media spectacle that we had when we ran the first secessionist for the assembly. Am I missing it? Am I missing anything? Anybody see a flaw with my logic? I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm saying seems like there's a market there. Seems like nobody's tapping into it. Seems like John's very talented, and seems like John's willing to do literally what our main goal is. Now, maybe in the future we need to do more of this or that, but right now I think this is a great opportunity.
Also, it seems like John is fairly comparable to myself and others within our movement, where we value logical, sensible, reasonable, middle of the ground, truly inclusive. So like what you were saying about, hey, if you're a Republican in California, if you're a Democrat in California, if you're a California Green, if you're California this, that, the other, the only thing that's really going to matter is, do you identify as a Californian first and foremost, and are you willing to stand up specifically for the people of California, who we call our brothers and sisters?
That's what I'd like to see.
I mean, I don't really see anything wrong with that. Yeah, I would say that that Jason and I are pretty eye to eye on on a few things. Obviously, I'm a left-wing person. Obviously, I believe in a very specific way California should be run, and with specific policies and ideologies intact. But I'm not against compromising here and there for the betterment of California, because obviously my first and foremost duty is to serve California.
If I could show you all this. So here's a tweet from Yes California. Yes California endorses former Assembly candidate John Drake. He's one of the youngest high-profile LGBTQ people to run recently. He's a California nationalist, believes California can survive on its own as a nation, although he doesn't necessarily support the idea of secession. He endorses California values and believes in California first. So we did that recently. I think it's been a productive partnership, and it's not everything we want, but I think, when we're trying to get this idea across, we're trying to get Californians to think about this, we have to be adaptive. We have to market our thing to what the market wants, not say, market, you should appreciate our marketing material better. I think John may have a marketing vehicle that's at least very sticky for a third of the population. Okay.
Well, and speaking of significant portions of population of California, can we go into at least part of the way into the indigenous issues stuff, and John, kind of what we talked about as far as inclusivity of our indigenous brothers and sisters?
Are you asking me for like my opinion on it, or like just to like be involved?
A little bit of both. I mean, I'd like because I know you and I had talked the other night when we were talking about all of this. We had discussed indigenous issues, indigenous representation, possibly an indigenous issues committee within the party that will always be there, and the head of it will always be an indigenous person who's on the board of the whole party,
Yes,
so that they have true representation and leadership, and their voice will always be there in the mix.
Yes. So I've always, even like since like 2016, even when I was a Trump supporter at the time, I've always been a very big proponent of indigenous issues. I believed even back then that on a federal level that there should be a law passed that would immediately reparate all indigenous communities with every with all the funds promised in every treaty, because of the way that they've been treated, and because so many treaties have been broken. I've always believed that. But in California, definitely, indigenous communities are a large part of our economy. They're also a large part of our population, and I think that they haven't been represented in the best way possible. I know that the governor created like an indigenous board that talks about indigenous issues. I can't remember the exact name for it, but the issue is that the Democratic Party itself doesn't actually have a group or a committee that represents indigenous issues within the party, and that makes it so that like a lot of the policies that are often discussed are not centered around around indigenous needs, and a lot of that creates the systemic problems that many of these communities are still facing today. So I talked to Jason, and Jason talked with me about possibly creating a committee centered around indigenous issues, and always having at least one indigenous person in the central committee of the party, which acts as like the board of directors, quote unquote, of the party, is the best way to describe it. And so I've been a very huge proponent of it, and I'm glad Jason's been talking with indigenous communities too, because this actually makes working these issues out a lot easier. And commonly indigenous communities here in California tend to actually be more favorable towards socialism in general. And so by having a party that is a straight up socialist party in general, that should win their support a lot easier. And it would definitely make them more, it'll make these groups more willing to have a conversation with us, and thereby informing the policies that we create.
So this is a map of the unratified treaties. It's the area in blue. And even if we discussed that issue, it would be huge for Native people, because not even Newsom talks about how California signed treaties and then backed out of them. So nobody talks about that outside of the Native. If there was a political party in California, and even if you didn't say land back, but you just said, hey, have you seen this map of the treaties that were broken and we need to discuss that, it would be gigantic. No one's done that. Not even the Democratic Party, and not the Green Party, and none of the Calexit groups. So that would be historic, to at least even just raise the conversation of, here's this map, here's these broken treaties. We need to fix this, folks. No one's talking about that outside those people. That would be huge. And John is talking about the broken treaties roughly signed in 1851 to 1852. And they went largely through the Central Valley and the North Central Valley. There's about 12 of them, and they were signed and then stored in a drawer for decades and never acknowledged. So those are broken treaties, absolutely. And even having the conversation about that would be huge. Additionally, having the conversation about the extent of the genocide would be huge. And additionally, having the conversation about how Newsom did apologize for the genocide of the 1850s gold rush period, which was great. But like you said, he's having this reparations committee. You know, how far along is that? Are they really going to do anything? A political party that raised the profile of reparations for indigenous would also be groundbreaking, because nobody's doing that. Not the Republicans and not the Democrats. So just raising those two issues, there were broken treaties, and what are you doing about reparations? Not even taking a stance would be groundbreaking in California politics in a way that benefits California indigenous to a level they've never experienced before in California history.
I agree.
Jason,
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you know, for folks who are thinking like, you know, well, America's always taking care of the native folks, and you know, America's not so bad when it comes to upholding agreements with indigenous peoples. You know, while this guy was president, his name was Abraham Lincoln. There was a general under his command, General Fremont, who, you know, pretty much not unanimously, shoot, what's the word? He single-handedly declared an autonomous zone where slavery was unlawful, meaning it's not just something we don't do, it's something you will be tried for a crime if you do it. And, you know, that was like really super progressive for back in that day, would be even today in some aspects. But Lincoln, the guy who, like, you know, is credited with ending slavery because he was such a great guy and this and that. Well, Lincoln fired General Fremont and undid the bit of legal loophole to get rid of slavery. He undid that. Now, we've got this common American exceptionalism idea in our minds usually that like Lincoln was great and ended slavery, and America definitely was not founded on anything other than equality. Um, these are falsehoods that a lot of us have had programmed into us for a very long time. America was built only for rich, white, land owning men, not women. Doesn't matter if you're white or not. If you're a woman, you get no choice. If you're anything other than a rich white man, no vote, no voice, no say whatsoever. And that was from the beginning. And it took a long time, long time, many generations to get any sort of change on any of that. So, again, when we're talking about forming this thing for Californians to be actually truly inclusive and wholesome, this is pretty much what we grew up to believe that America was, what most of us have realized since, graduating from high school and whatnot. What we've realized is not really America. And, I just got to point out the founding fathers, what they were designing is much more akin to a democratic social society rather than a republic or the democratic republic that a lot of people, reference. Yes, it is a slightly democratic, corporate autocracy riddled republic now. However, what the founding fathers were building was much more akin to democratic socialism. So, if you really feel American and you're like, well, I don't know about Calexit because I don't hate America, just know we don't hate America. We just realize that America has fallen very, very far short of hitting the mark. America has been crumbling. It has been failing its people. It has been enriching very few while leeching and detrimentalizing the vast majority. When we talk about California, it's because we're Californians and we realize that what works for California doesn't necessarily work for Texas, just like what works for Texas doesn't necessarily work for California. Maybe there are some things that we do agree on, like, the government shouldn't go around and just randomly, raid people's homes, and the unlawful search and seizure and forced quartering and whatnot. There are things like that that we can agree on. But we aren't really interested in affecting America. We're not hating America. We're not trying to bring America down. We're actually, if anything, trying to bring the 40 million Californians into something that is much closer to what America was supposed to be. So if you feel American and you feel that democracy is numero uno, first and foremost, and that a democracy must take care of its people, its society, well, then guess what, folks? You're a socialist. You're the exact kind of socialist that we're talking about. You should really consider this party.
I think we made a pretty good case for why we're looking into this. I also think that we did a good job of not saying it's perfect and it's everything we want, and it's, but I think it's a realistically great opportunity, and I think we did a good job explaining that. Anyone, other comments from anybody else? Pro, con, if you don't like the idea, please speak up. Please make a comment. We don't want to edit the conversation. We want an open conversation. If people don't like this idea, please say so. If you do like this idea, please say so. We are live, so you will not be edited. Your comments will go straight out. We cannot go, well, nobody said that they were against this. So it's an open thing. If you don't like it, if you do like it, voice your comments. Every comment is welcome. We're exploring this idea. I do think it's going very well, and I do think we've acknowledged the pitfalls and recognized the great opportunities. And I do think we did a great review of the data backing this up. Any other comments from anybody? Am I missing anything? Okay. John, last minute comments, and then we'll go to Jason and close it out.
Honestly, I'm just like really pumped to get like an actual left-wing party going in the state, and thank you so much for your support in that, even if you may not agree with all the policies I support, and am going to encourage this party to push and do. I am thankful that you are at least giving this a shot. Thank you.
I think it's helpful that I say I'm an ex-Republican and I'm somewhat uncomfortable, because I know there's going to be people who are thinking that, and then they're going to look and go, well, yeah, but Marcus is still messing with them. So why? And I think I showed why. So I'd like everybody to really think about this. I know it's not perfect, but I think it's this huge opportunity, and I think it's going to get us things we don't have. Our whole goal is to raise the conversation, right? We said we changed the strategic goal years ago from we're going to change your mind, you must back secession, to we just want to have a conversation and we want it to be normalized, normative programming. This will get us there. This will make it where at least a third of Californians are going, I'm not sure how I feel about it, but it's okay to talk about it. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. There's some smart people who talk about it. It's a conversation we could have. Like you said, foster the environment. We're not there yet. So even if we achieve that low bar of a political party with a third of Californians who don't necessarily back secession, but believe it's an okay conversation to have, and you're not wrong or crazy for doing it, that's winning. We're not there yet. If we achieve that, that is another plateau up for the movement. That's how I view it. Jason, any other comments? And then I'd want to show a little clip for everybody. Jason, comments, sir?
One second.
Sure. Well, while Jason's getting ready, let me show you guys this video real quick. We're going to do an episode on this, but we just haven't gotten to it yet. So Mark Charles is an indigenous author. Mark Charles wrote the book Unsettling Truths, where he talks about returning land to the indigenous. Yes, California had proposed returning land to the indigenous in 2018 on Fox News. And we got criticized for the idea by white California liberals. And here's where I explain. 1 second. I know there's a voice in the foreground. I'm sorry about that. Try to focus on my voice if you can. Wouldn't it be a good way to at least start reparations? We suggested that. Did everybody see where Mark Charles just smiled when I said that? The San Francisco Chronicle, the Los Angeles Times, editorial board. That's not a reporter, that's everybody that works in the newspaper. And the press enterprise out of San Bernardino, and a high-ranking indigenous leader that we can run band of indigenous out of San Bernardino, all said, we don't need to have this conversation because if Native people wanted their land back, they would have already gotten it back. The LA Times editorial board said, that's what the San Francisco Chronicle editorial board said, that's what a high-ranking indigenous person said on TV, and that's what the press enterprise out of San Bernardino said. And, you know, I'm not criticizing, but none of the indigenous, when we talk to them later on, part of that more criticizing. So if we can get the conversation going, and people won't criticize, and the two major newspapers in California So that's Mark Charles, one of the most recognized indigenous authors anywhere in America, saying nobody wants to have conversations about returning land. And yes, California looks to be like one of the only groups of non-natives who are doing that. That's also a conversation that we could have in the Socialist Party. Raise the profile of it. Okay, we'll leave it there. Jason, any last minute comments?
Yeah. So I would say, roughly, and we know this from the statistics and polls and whatnot, roughly 1/3 of California's voters were ready to Calexit now several years ago. As much as half of California voters were either in that boat or at the very least willing to openly, logically look into the viability of Calexit. So, folks, no other party is going to foster this conversation. No other party is willing to even go as far as to say, hey, if that's what the people want, then why would we stand in the way of the people? We want to represent the people. No other party's doing that, folks. So if you're part of the 1/3 of California voters who wish to Calexit now, well, guess what? Between the Demopublicans and the Republicrats of California, we see that, our middle ground stance could pull a bit from the right and a fair amount from the left, as well as kind of encompass most of the middle. If our Calexiters, all of us, get together and join this party and help shape this party, well, guess what? The Democratic Party of California would then be the second largest party in California, with the first largest being, oh, drum roll, us. So think about this logically. If we're tired of getting the cold shoulder from the Dems, and we don't want to just leave the Dems at the risk of the reps taking over, well, have we got a viable solution for you? All we have to do is come together as Californians, join this thing, make this thing, help this thing along. It will be the largest single demographic in California, politically speaking. That would mean that just us Calexiters, we could really make or break this whole party just by flooding into it and saying, hey, this party's at least willing to not stand in the way of the people. I'm going to join it. And as someone who's been a lifelong Green, I gotta say, the California Green Party has recently taken some turns for the worse, working against itself, against its own candidates who really would have represented the people and, worked towards solving issues in a way that's actually solving them. And so I've even personally become disenfranchised with my own party, the California Green Party, the party I signed up to, oh wow, I'm 36 now. I signed up when I was 18. You do the math. It's been a while.
Since 18.
Yeah. And I am even getting on board with a party that will allow the discussion, will foster the discussion, will go with the will of the people, should it be for Calexit or against it, right? the will of the people is what matters. So, given that we know at least 1/3, which is a larger singular chunk than most others, at least 1/3 of us want it to happen now. We could do this. We just have to come together and make it happen. While all other parties out there, especially ones that are claiming they're for independence or whatever, while they're all working against independence in favor of hopefully one day getting elected to the federal government so they can have a cushy job. I mean, you know, the plan supposedly is that they can flood the government with Californians, and then once the entire federal government is controlled by Californians, those Californians who work for the federal government would somehow, for some reason, be willing to let California go, even though we would be the only thing keeping them in office. And so if they let us go,
boom,
right?
Boom,
So
boom, right
just
there.
use your logic, use your reasoning, think clearly about this. There is only one party that is going to allow for anything Calexit, and that's what we're putting together now. It's also not implicitly a Calexit party, so you don't have to be for independence. All you have to do is feel like you yourself are first and foremost a Californian. Pretty much the exact opposite of what Governor Newsom said when asked about Calexit. His words, and I will quote, "First and foremost, I am an American. I'm not interested in all that." End quote. So even our top elected official isn't really in line with all of this. 90-something%, I would judge, are not in line with all of this when it comes to major politics. Now, keep in mind, Governor Newsom obviously has been having his eye on a federal seat for a long time. Our folks are not looking towards federal structure and federal positions. This thing is all about California and Californians. We are the largest, as Californians, we are the largest single state entity type demographic in the entirety of the United States of America. We have roughly 11 to 12% of all of America's population. And they readily discount us. They discredit us. They exclude us. They're all too happy to come and see us face to face when they want more money. Oh yeah, we just spent $128 million getting anti-choice people into offices around the country. We need you to give us more money, even though we couldn't be bothered to, you know, dish out $1,200 checks that we campaigned and won on. We can't, you know, afford to make the previous guy look good, so, you know, everyone has to suffer through the holidays. Just suck it up and know that you're doing your part for America. Well,
that.
Yeah, right? And that's freaking Nancy Pelosi. So, again, California Democrats that work for the federal government do not work for California or for Californians or for California values. They serve the federal government of the United States of America, which regularly presses its boot heel down on our throats. If you don't want to be subject to all of that BS anymore, if you don't want to be used and abused and thrown out like a dirty rag, then do consider getting involved with this party. Sí se puede. Viva todos Californios. Órale.
that. Love working with you, bro. Okay, we're going to leave it there. I think we had a good conversation. We're looking into this idea. We showed you some of the marketing. We showed you some of the research behind it, and we showed you some of the thinking about it. Take a look, think about it. Get in touch with us. We'll keep talking about this. C, Let Go California, Daniel Santoro. John Drake, I love your version. I believe what you're talking about for Unity and Party. Okay, that's it. Jason, any last minute comments?
I just want us all to be safe, be aware, be mindful. There's a lot of misinformation that goes around pretty much 24/7. Pick a topic, there will be misinformation about it. Let's all use our brains, think clearly and rationally, and also let's think about our future, not just for each of our individual selves, but as a collective and also for our future generations. I mean, the likelihood that California is just going to poof into non-existence is slim to none at best, which tells us there will be future generations of Californians. What are we going to leave for them? What are we going to build for them? Are we going to have future generations born into subjugation, born into needing to work 60 to 80 hours a week for minimum wage so that half of that can go to the federal government and they can live on the streets and struggle to even survive? Or are we going to do something different, something better? It's our choice. Something new or the same old, same old. And we know where the same old gets us. So, viva todos Californios.
And that is it for us. We're going to end the show there. We will see you next week. Thank you, everybody, for coming out and for commenting. Please watch the video. Please comment. You can always get a hold of us at yescalifornia.podia or yescalifornia on Twitter. I'm going to end the show. We are not ending the studio, so if people want to stick around, you can always talk. And we have conversations after the show that are a little bit more private. If you want to be part of those, come and join the show. And we will see you very soon.